Hi YouTube, Muchismo Eugene. Welcome to another video from Exit Strategy. You know, to remain silent or to remain neutral is pretty much being part of the problem. That was one of the famous things that Mace, the rapper, talked about on a podcast. He said, where I'm from, to remain neutral, you're just as much part of the problem. We know people, and we probably have been guilty in times past, and many times we still may be that person that it's not my business, I'm not going to get involved, it's not my concern, I'm not going to bother myself with that. I have my own problems. Now, in a lot of things that are happening in the world, I would agree with you wholeheartedly. But let's talk about this thing about abuse, mental, psychological abuse, in which we know it as narcissistic personality disorder abuse. Now, this is one thing that's mysterious in our society. It is something that goes under the radar in our society. Like I said before, a lot of us use the word narcissist, narcissism. Society uses that word like it's, they use it like it's just commonplace. But I'll tell you what I do know for a fact, just by interacting in society personally. I believe 95% of the world know what narcissist is by definition, but they have no clue what it is in essence. At the very core, they know little to nothing about it. Although they're moving around, they're interacting, they're engaging with such entities, they're even playing along with them. They're even getting along with them. They're even going through things with them, whether it be at the workplace, relationships, family units. They know what it is, and they will readily say, you're acting like a narcissist. And they will just jump in their car and leave that family reunion or whatever gathering there is going on, and they'll take the high road while calling them out. Now, that is typical of a person that knows what narcissists are, but they have no clue what narcissistic personality disorder is. Knowing what they are and knowing what it is at its core is two totally different things, because knowing what it is means you have felt the wrath in a way unlike most of society. Because what happens with most of society, they give a pass like we have in the past. We gave a pass in 95% of our world, if not more. And some would say that's reaching, but no. Because if that wasn't the case, if the numbers wasn't so high, if it wasn't a fair majority of our world, then we would not have the crimes we have that are going undealt with in respects to what they really are. Every time there's a malicious or there's a catastrophic situation by way of one human with another, it is always labeled everything but what it really is. You'll never hear that a serial killer has been deemed a narcissist. You will never hear on mainstream TV someone like P. Diddy is a narcissist. R. Kelly is a narcissist. Predators. You would just hear that they are perverts. You would hear that they are predators. They would use that term, but not even scratching the surface of knowing that a predator and a narcissist. That's almost like, because if that's the case, I think predatory nature is in a lot of people that are not taking women and having their way with them and drugging them, or having their way with little kids and doing all this other atrocious stuff that we hear in the news. If that's all they were, why aren't more people behind walls? You know why? Because it's downplayed to a degree. Most of the time you hear predator, it is someone pointing the finger at someone that has these propensities and these, they have these, and it's most often when that said person get exposes, then the finger pointing goes in the direction of the accused. Because to throw the blanket of suspicion on the said predator, then that person has to bear the brunt for everything outside of them and around them. They carry the weight of the whole. And so somebody is the guinea pig for that. You and me, the empath, chosen ones, we are the guinea pigs for the narcissist. Now, in a case where I said no one's calling out the predators as they deem them, P. Diddy, R. Kelly, they're not calling them narcissists. They are not using that term because you know why? A lot of the people in positions who are actually doing the justice and holding these guys under accountability, they most of the time, in fact, in positions of power, they have much of the same propensities. If you're following me. With Epstein, he had gotten outed. And so in him getting outed because he was so flamboyant and reckless, if I can use that term, he was just so flamboyant, so in your face, so cocky. And this is what happened when a narcissist do too much, to the point where he risks exposing other narcissists. Then those narcissists have to get together and take private counsel. So the ones who are silent are just as much a part of the problem in the case of Epstein, but only Epstein got called under scrutiny and mysteriously hangs himself. And so going full circle back to point, to say nothing, to do nothing is just a much part of the problem as the person or the individual problem itself. Take the Lord Jesus Christ when he was about to be crucified. They were chanting, "Crucify him," but they could not crucify him without the consent of Pontius Pilate. So they unctioned Pilate, in essence, this is a bad man. He's blaspheming the name of the living God, saying he's this, saying he that. They was bringing all kind of accusatory allegations against him. And what happened was the people got together in groups and pressured Pontius Pilate. And Pontius Pilate's response was, listen, I don't find no fault in this man. Do what you will with him. To do nothing is to do nothing. To do nothing is to do nothing. So this is what Pontius Pilate, he did nothing, and in him doing nothing, he did nothing about the fact that they crucified him. So the blood, and he actually said, this man's blood is not on my hand. Because he didn't physically crucify him, he felt like he had nothing to do with it. And this is what we often do sometimes when we know things are happening in and around certain circumstances. We lay silent because we don't feel like it's immediately affecting us, or it's not immediately our problem. So I'm talking about anything that you may be thinking about right now in and of yourself, that you know you have the power to speak. You have the power to make some kind of power move. You know that person at work is undermining the company and doing things towards that coworker that are unjust. There are things that you can do. You can write a letter anonymously, and you can go into detail and talk and advocate for that person who is being done unjustly. What you do when you speak doesn't have to be visibly. You don't have to be visibly vocal. You can be silently vocal. And I just pointed out how you can do that. Your pen can be vocal. Your pencil can be vocal. Your phone call could be vocal. And some would say, oh, this is rolling on people, snitching on people. I used to think, we used to use the word narking on people. When I was a little kid, that was the word that was used. Quit narking on somebody. I didn't know that this is what, and now I even know that this has nothing to do with being a narcissist, unless they was connecting that to say a narcissist is a very type person. I'm using that because I don't think you can talk like that on YouTube. They're definitely, that's what they do all day long. That's what they do. So I think, if I'm guessing correctly, to snitch on somebody would be to narc on somebody. Now, I could be totally wrong, but from that day up into 2020, when I awakened as a result of being directly involved with a woman I married, who consequently I discovered is a covert narcissist. I now know today that that word narking on somebody is, no. That does not scratch the surface. So back to what I'm saying, doesn't mean you're a snitch. You're an ethical human being. And when it comes to someone being harmed or hurt, I think in that respect, there needs to be some involvement by you or me as an individual. Now, some would say, okay, well, what if somebody's dealing drugs in the neighborhood? Isn't that the police's job to do that? Well, in that case, I would actually agree with you to a strong degree. And if you care about your neighborhood, I'm here to say, if you don't feel compelled to get police involved in those respects, then you have to ask yourself, do you really care about your neighborhood, or do you just care about your comfort? This is a day and time that's coming, and it's fastly approaching, that you and I will have to make a decision one way or the other, because not to decide is not to decide. You're still making a decision, even when you don't decide to do the ethical thing, because when you don't decide, your indecision or non-decision is a decision not to do anything about it. So you have to rest with the fact that you didn't decide, the fact that you had the wherewithal to make a sound decision, and so you didn't. And how this ties into narcissists and all of their ill behavior, we know someone who is being directly affected by a narcissist. And you may say, well, listen, most people I would tell in a relationship with these people are not going to listen to me. And I would agree with you to a strong degree, because if they're not out of the fog, this is not gonna make any sense to them. But what I will tell you, there are things that you can say to the person who you care about, if you determine that this individual is a good soul. If you determine that this person is a good soul and they are not the narcissist, something within you compels you to do something. And when you're being compelled to do something, don't just do anything. Take a moment, think about it, process it, have a conversation with yourself, pray to God, ask him what would he have you do. But to stay stagnant is not the time. Because if God's afforded you the opportunity to be visibly or to visually see and observe that this is happening right in front of you, and you have the wherewithal and you have the insight and the knowledge, and you're awakened and you are very aware of what is going on, unlike society who are labeling it abuse, domestic violence. A lot of domestic violence is deeply embedded with either one or two narcissists in cat and dog fights that are never going to end. They're unceasing, and it's a back and forth, repetitive. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol involved. There's a lot of infidelity going on. It's just a whole bunch of things going on in these toxic, that's another word society uses. This is more than toxic. In many cases, there's no wonder why we have a police system in America that far outweighs our education systems. Why is there such an intense need for policing, an intense need for incarceration, but there's not an intense need to expose this thing that we know called narcissists for what it is? You know why? Because some of the powers that be are in fact narcissists themselves. And this is, like I said in a lot of videos, this is a gladiator sports. So back in the days, in biblical days, which we're still in biblical days, but the illustration of how they had the fights to the death, the Roman soldiers and the Roman battles inside of the stadiums, where you would duel and fight to the death. And the more blood and the more gore, the more people chanted and cheered. And the one who lost got fed to the lions. And that's essentially still remaining today. When the empath loses, seemingly to a narcissist, you have a cheering squad, and they feed you to the dogs. They let the world have their way with you by continuing to hee hee ha ha, smear you, ostracize you. Nowhere you go, you're not welcome. Nowhere you go, you can get reemployed. Nowhere you go, you are received with kindness. So you become a pilgrim. You become a drifter of sorts in this society, until you realize God has already niched out your He's already niched out your journey. It's tailor-made to you. This is a real twisted world we're living in, and you can hear this in the church spoken in this sense, but even in the churches, they're not to be trusted, because guess what? They have found a way and have adopted this lingo into the churches where it makes people fascinate about how does this man know this, or how does this prophetess know this? And this is nothing that they're prophetically given by God. They have counterfeited what chosen ones have discovered and already know within their own self that we are the chosen of God. Thereby, we recognize the evil that exists in and around us, or in our world and around us, or even in us sometimes. We recognize the evil that tries to pervade our human flesh, And a lot of times we're not comfortable with that. We don't like it. We don't like being mean to people. We don't like treating people evil. We don't like doing things to hurt people. That is not the nature of a chosen one. So those shoes don't fit us. Although when we feel threatened or we feel like we're in danger, the chosen, the empath will strike back out of defense. We will protect ourselves. We will defend our life, because we know our life is already protected by God, but he's given us the wherewithal to sustain ourselves. He's made us warriors like that. And so the silence of a lot of these people in attendance to this gladiator sports, when the narcissist is having their way with us and doing what they do on a regular, the people who are silent, who knew you were getting drugged, who knew you were getting not drugged like a drug, and sometimes you were drugged almost like a P. Diddy situation, but you were dragged by the narcissist. You were being done so malicious and so vicious by these people, and you had people around you in your family sometimes. They knew that you were not that bad person that narcissist alleged against you. But the family, your family, became so convinced of what the narcissist told them, because the narcissist won them over early in the game. The narcissist made them feel like they were such a good person. And so this is why it was so effective when the narcissist began to roll on you and to smear you. Even your own flesh and blood began to believe every word out of the narcissist's mouth. And so your own family members, instead of them coming and consulting with you in privacy and in discretion, and coming together as a family in order to push that darkness out, no, they pledge allegiance silently. They don't even tell you what that narcissist is up to. And before you know it, you get caught off guard and you get taken down and body slammed by this narcissist in many different ways. You end up losing finances, job, your house, the car, the children. And you'll have the narcissist ending up with everything that they didn't come in the relationship with. They'll go out with all of it, whatever it may be, tangible or intangible. They'll win in court, and then you'll have your own family, your bloodline, your own immediate family, biological family, still having relationship with them, even after divorce is final, even after the relationship is over. Something about that is just not normal. So to see a biological family not only side with an outsider, and this is a case where the outsider is a narcissist. So the family, your family, are determined to see you demolished and destroyed. It makes no logical sense, but in the sense of being awakened and knowing what narcissistic personality disorder is, that family, that biological family, they've been had hook, line, and sinker. They go on to be friends with that outsider. Many years after, they maintain relationships with them, because this is how effective powers of darkness are in this world. In your biological family, they end up becoming silent with you. There's a lot of narcissism in there. When you see that, a narcissist recruits people who are weak-minded in many cases to behave, move, and function just like the narcissist himself. So it's an allegiance. And that's the world we're living in now. People are pledging allegiance. No, they don't have to do this. They'll pledge allegiance physically and visually in front of a flag, but they're pledging allegiance to one another. While you, the chosen one and the empath, are there kicking, screaming, and struggling to make sense out of the nonsense. But God has awakened you. He has opened your eyes in a new, fresh way. So now you don't have to be frustrated about this. You can sit back in your moments of silence, and God will come and comfort you and start talking to you about the things that you didn't understand before. Trust me when I tell you, he will be able to instruct you and educate you and inform you in a way that no academic book ever could. That being said, bless.